30 days ago, I started logging every hour of my day. No goals, no intentions, just simply logging it. So what it did was to map and categorize every hour of my life. And what I found was that most of the work I thought was productive actually wasn't. Here's the problem with being your own boss, your own scheduler, your own everything. There is no external check on whether the things you're doing is building towards something. You could feel busy, productive, you could end a 10-hour day and think to yourself that, yeah, I'm exhausted, I'm tired, and you could convince yourself that the things you did was productive. But in reality, the things you did have no compounding effect on the things you're trying to build. You basically did nothing. I know that feeling. I've been there for the last 30 days. The difference between motion and progress is often not visible from the inside. You need a system that makes it visible for you. So that's what the Time Audit does. It doesn't judge your work, it simply names and categorizes it. And once you name the hours of your day, you can judge whether you're wasting time on doing the things that you shouldn't be doing. In other words, you know what's wasting your time. The 4-category time audit. 4 categories, everything belongs to one of these 4. No exceptions, no gray zones between 2 activities. It simply names it, and you can finally be honest with yourself about what's wasting your time. Category number 1, building, which means building anything that didn't exist before. Compounding output, so to speak. A video script, a system you're building, a piece of work that's gonna be working for you in 6 months. Building has a product at the end of it. The product that's bigger than the effort and time you put into creating it. Basically, the product generates returns over time for you and your work. Category number 2 is maintaining. Basically doing anything that keeps the systems that already are in place running and makes no compounding value to the business. Nothing new. Answering messages, checking analytics, administrative work. Basically everything that makes the systems that are running right now keep running in the same way. Maintenance is important, not because it grows your business, but because it holds your business's position right there. The trap with maintaining is that it often feels like it's urgent and important, and it actually is, but not as much as you think it is. But the person who will be using his peak hours for maintaining will always be falling behind the person who uses his peak hours for building. Category number 3, consuming. Basically any inbound information that someone else created. YouTube, Instagram, articles, podcasts, research rabbit holes. Consuming isn't inherently bad. Sometimes it helps you to build. For example, a specific video that helps you solve a specific problem in the building hours. For example, a book chapter that's informing you about the thing that you're actually building. That's not consuming, it's more like fuel for your work hours. But consuming has a default pattern to it, and doing it the default way isn't actually the most optimized way of using your time. We know how it is. You open your Instagram, you start at your feed, you keep just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and suddenly 2 hours have passed and you have done nothing. You've been passive the whole time. That's avoidance dressed up as consuming and wasting your time on things that you didn't want to know anyways. It's a form of procrastination. The audit forces you to look at all those hours that you spent consuming or learning or stuff like that. Learning is consuming. It's the more active, the more efficient one, but it's still consuming. The audit lets you see those hours and think to yourself, was any of those things that I've consumed upstream to the things that I'm trying to build right? Or was it just filling time that had no other containers? Category 4, recovery. Basically the whole infrastructure that keeps everything else running. Food, moving, sleeping, etc. Time which is not productive but makes the productive hours possible. Recovery isn't wasted time, but neglecting it is the way to bankrupt your whole system immediately. The mistake people make with recovery is they try to see it as dead time, that's something wasted or something unproductive. Recovery is one of the most productive things because it makes you use and utilize your building hours more effectively. It's nothing to you squeeze into a limited time block and you make it shorter for you to have more building hours. No, that doesn't work. Your building hours will be shallow, you will be distracted, you won't be performing at your highest level if you haven't been recovered. Actually, the opposite is true. Maximizing the effectiveness of your recovery hours actually maximizes the output and building capacity you have for your building hours. It's not a cost, it's infrastructure. 4 categories all named: building, maintaining, consuming, and recovering. Now it's time to see what ratio you're actually running your daily life. Most people, when they honestly audit, find something like this. They're spending their best hours, the first 2 to 3 hours of each morning, on maintaining and consuming, which is a terrible mistake. This way, the building hours, the deep work sessions, the things that will actually build towards something more that compounds value, is pushed off to the afternoon when the brain is already tired and you're not in your best form. The ratio is inverted from what it should. And here's the more uncomfortable version of that. The time slot that people mistakenly name building or categorize as building is mostly consuming disguised as building, and more often than not, it's just not doing anything. Imagine watching a YouTube video about the thing that you want to build instead of actually building it. If you're not gonna build it, why are you watching a video about it? You're planning the system instead of running it. You're researching the topic instead of writing about it. None of that is building. Building has output. If at the end of the session nothing new exists, that was not building. The audit makes it visible. It replaces the story you tell yourself about how your week looked like and gives you an honest version of how it actually went. Here's what the 30-day audit actually taught me. I thought I was using my hours to build. I thought I was doing and giving deep creative hours on that. But I was wrong. When I mapped it from category to category, the picture was a bit different. Most of my days were actually consuming disguised as something else. Research loops that weren't serving a specific output. Planning that didn't turn into action. Watching stuff that actually didn't matter at all and labeling it industry research or something in my head. It felt like building, but it was actually consuming in proximity to building. So the proximity had its ways around my head and made me think about the fact that I was doing something, but in reality I was simply consuming. The second thing that the audit showed me was that my maintaining load was higher than I have acknowledged it to be. Necessary maintenance tasks were bleeding into hours that were preserved for deep work sessions. Without the audit, I couldn't see it and I just felt scattered all around the place. What changed after I used the audit? So I made a 2-hour time block each morning, the first time block of my day, and preserved it for deep works. So deep work means building, no consumption, no maintenance, pure out. And I wouldn't do a list on this. Deep work would be just simply a simple task done right, the hardest task in the day, and it would change and shift the whole nature of the way I spent my time during that day. So if I did the hard thing first, the whole day followed with smaller tasks, which meant less resistance to doing said smaller tasks. So the maintenance tasks would get done sooner. I'm still running this. The 30-day audit showed me the ratio I was running at, but the ongoing audit is how I hold myself to build towards the ratio that I want to for myself. The next video will have numbers about how my week actually looks like, so stay tuned for that. The 4-category audit system isn't a productivity hack or tactic, it's simply a naming system. And once you name something, it makes accountability possible. You can't be honest about how you're spending your time if you don't have a language precise enough to describe it. Most people run their whole life on vague categories: work, fun, rest, stuff like that. Those categories are too wide to actually reveal anything. Work can hold 8 hours of building or 8 hours of performative business. You can't tell this from the outside. And without the audit or a system to name them, you can't do it from the inside either. It's a way to be honest with yourself. Here's the bigger picture. Time is the only asset we have which is non-renewable and extremely limited. Every other resource, money, attention, can be grown, restored, or recovered. Can't restore time. And most people are passive with it. They let the day happen to them and call whatever resulted in their schedule. They optimize for not feeling idle instead of constructing towards something important. The audit doesn't change how much time you have in a day, it simply softens your relationship with the time you already have. You can't optimize something if you don't have it measured, and you can't measure something if you have no name for it. That's why the whole system works. It's a naming system. Here's your next move. Not tomorrow, right now, in the next 20 minutes. Open a notebook or a Notion page and write down everything you did yesterday. Everything, I mean everything, even your bathroom breaks. And categorize each of them into one of those 4 categories and name them. Simply that. Look at how much time you were actually spending on building. The number, whatever it is your baseline. And you can't improve on anything if you don't know what your baseline is. So now you know your baseline, let's start improving. As always, strive for excellence, and I'll catch you in the next one.